Hello, and welcome to the Philosophical Research Society. Thank you for joining us for tonight's lecture, The Wisdom in Every Step, the Heart Sutra and its Map of Awakening with Carlyle Coash. If this is your first time at PRS, we're very glad you found your way here. I hope you've had a chance to look at our wonderful bookstore, and if you haven't, be sure to pop in after the talk. In general, the campus and bookstore are open Tuesday through Friday, 12 to 6 p.m. The PRS Library, which is an architectural marvel as well as a treasure trove of amazing books, is open to the public Thursday and Friday, 12 to 6 p.m. It's well worth making the time to come visit. We have a great roster of upcoming events that you can always find on our website at prs.org, as well as on our social media channels. One worth highlighting is the Sounds of South Asia, a musical event that we've organized with the Los Angeles International Music and Arts Academy. It's going to be a fantastic evening of music on Friday, September 8th at 7 p.m. We also have a range of online courses that are accessible to PRS fans all over the globe. If you're joining us on Zoom, that may be of special interest to you. 2 new on-demand courses, which allow students to learn and access materials at their own pace, are newly available. Air and Wind, Perspectives from Alchemy, Chinese Medicine, and Phenomenology explores one of the most fundamental elements through a variety of lenses. The Basic Keys to the Secret Teachings of All Ages is an in-depth engagement with PRS founder Manly Hall's masterwork. Carlyle, tonight's speaker, also has an incredible on-demand class called Ordinary Ritual, Making Meaning in Everyday Life. This class explores the role of ritual in various cultures and wisdom traditions, and aims to help participants make meaning out of everyday experiences and live a more interconnected and inspired way. His interactive, multi-module course, Walking the Path of Grief, will launch on September 22nd, and registration will be available soon. Now to present Carlyle. Carlyle Coash holds a master's in Buddhist studies from Naropa University. He has spent many years working in end-of-life care and has been a certified meditation instructor since 1999. He has a passion for exploring the practical and real impact of Buddhist teachings in the world and in our relationship with all beings, exploring questions such as, how do we bring kindness, understanding, and wisdom to everything that we are? It is an age-old exploration that even in the best of times is imperative. Please join me in welcoming Carlyle.
See, this is the true test to see if the equipment works. Yay, it worked. It's fully charged. Welcome. It's so wonderful, as always, to be here at PRS. There's so much heritage and depth of experience here, so it always feels quite humbling to stand up here and talk about anything with any sort of coherence. I hope I do tonight. I believe they're handing out, this is just a handout that is the sutra that we'll be exploring tonight. They may have run out. But we won't particularly need it. It's just so you have it and can read along when we read through the sutra. And there's also a prayer on the other side that we'll explore a little bit later. So when I was talking to Kelly, who runs the library and creates a lot of the programs here, she had mentioned that people were very interested and excited to delve deeply into different texts. And so when we were talking about what kind of lecture to do tonight, she said, if there's a text, especially a Buddhist text, that you think would be interesting to explore. And as soon as she said that, my brain went the Heart Sutra. There's something about this particular piece of Buddhist teaching that this gets to the heart of who we are and how we could interact in the world in a different way. And so I thought this could be a wonderful opportunity just to explore that and to see what happens. It's been almost 30 years since I sort of stumbled a bit into Buddhist practice. My mother, about a month before she died, bought everyone in my family the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying by Sogyal Rinpoche. And she had thought that if maybe it was a way to explore and talk about the situation that was going on because she knew she was going to die soon. And my family was having a bit of difficulty with that. And there was something about reading that book that just cut right through all of the static in the world and just went right to some place in me that understood exactly what was being said. So eventually it led me to go to Naropa University to get a master's in Buddhist studies. That program, though, required us to do a month-long meditation retreat. And up to that point, I had only meditated for like maybe 15 minutes. So, why not just do a 17-hour-a-day meditation retreat, sort of trial by fire. But the first day, this particular retreat did chant throughout the day different Buddhist texts. And that first day in the morning, one of the first things we chanted was the Heart Sutra. And I just remember the first time reading through it, and they went on to other things, and I was just like, what have I just read? This thing is insane. I don't even know what any of it said, but I know it says something that I need to pay attention to. So I've always had a kind of personal connection and feeling to this particular teaching. So we'll see this image later, but this is actually on an island outside of Hong Kong, and it is the Heart Sutra that's been carved onto these huge log poles that people can wander around this mountainside and soak in the teaching, the Heart Sutra. My hope tonight is that for those if maybe the Heart Sutra is completely unfamiliar, it will be an opportunity to explore this interesting and wonderful text for the first time and maybe get an insight into some of the things that are being presented and offered. But if this is one of many, many times that you've read the Heart Sutra and studied it and explored it, well, I hope that maybe there's some aspect that maybe we'll enlighten a little bit tonight. But I always find that even texts that I've gone over and over and over and studied many times, I love exploring them again, always. There's always a way in which even just touching into a teaching for the first time again after seeing it many, many times before, that we can see something new. So, and I forgot to say hello to the folks that are joining us online. Thank you so much for joining on the airwaves, and again, thank you all for coming out on a trafficy Wednesday afternoon or evening. So the basic path that we'll walk this evening, we'll talk a little just about the history of the Heart Sutra in a very brief way, and then we'll read the sutra, and then go and do a little bit of a deep dive into aspects of it. One of the things that's kind of amazing about the Heart Sutra is that in the different Mahayana traditions that exist around the world, it is one of the few texts that you will find in all of these different traditions. And so it's been translated into many languages, and it is an inspiration for many practitioners in Korea, Vietnam, Tibet, India, Thailand. It has this wonderful life to it. So as we talk a little bit about the history, we'll just see different versions of it. This is a Chinese translation of the Heart Sutra. Heart Sutra is one of 40 Prajnaparamita sutras, and we'll talk a little bit more about the word Prajnaparamita. But these are sutras that are exploring the perfection of wisdom and the practice of wisdom. There is some very lively debate in the scholarly world about where this text was first composed, and we don't particularly have the time to explore all of that, although it's if you read up on it, it's amazing how heated people get about a translation that's 1,700 years old. But many scholars feel that it was composed in the Indian subcontinent. All of these 40 Prajnaparamita sutras roughly from 100 BCE to 600 CE. So there's quite a broad range here. This is the Tibetan translation of the Heart Sutra. And the Prajnaparamita Sutras, of these 40, there are versions that are literally a word and versions that are 100,000 lines. So there's this huge volumes, a way of expressing and talking about this topic. I've not seen the one that's only one word. It's like a couple of a lead-in and then it's literally the symbol ah, and that's it. But people have been known to attain awakening from reading that sutra. All of these Prajnaparamita Sutras take place at Vulture Peak Mountain, and we'll see a little bit of that in a second. It's in northeastern India. But one of the reasons why there's such a variety of length of the Prajnaparamita Sutras is that the ones that are 100,000 lines are intentionally exploring every possible nuance that one can about emptiness, and also about our mind and our habits and our patterns, and making sure, if you will, that we have as little wiggle room as possible. There's a way in which these teachings are encouraging us or pushing us to look past the ways in which we dualistically experience the world, the way we think of ourselves and everything else, as opposed to, are we not interconnected with everything? This version of the Heart Sutra is carved onto a wall at Mount Putuo it's an island off the East China Sea. And this is actually the name of Avalokitesvara, who you will meet in a second as one of the main characters of this sutra. And over here you can kind of see the sutra written and carved in on the side there. This is one of 4 holy mountains that is connected to the Buddhist tradition in China. The Heart Sutra itself is generally considered the 25 verses on the perfection of wisdom. And along with the Diamond Sutra is most likely the 2 most popular that is used in, again, all of these different lineages of Mahayana Buddhism. This is the Heart Sutra in Sanskrit. There are 2 main versions of the Heart Sutra. A shorter version, a translation by Xuanzang, who's a teacher and monk and traveler, is most known for an incredible journey he took from China to India to collect teachings, Buddhist teachings, to bring back to China in the 600s. There's also the earliest written version of the Heart Sutra is on a slab from 661 Common Era in China, and as well as a palm leaf version that's written calligraphied on a palm leaf from the 7th to 8th century that's currently in Japan. You can go see it at one of the national museums. But the thing here is that, of course, we're talking about it as if it only mattered when it started being written down. But actually, it existed many, many years before that, because Buddhism in particular one that we're going to explore tonight, as I said, is very specific to the Prajnaparamita and the exploration of wisdom. So I thought that what we could do, I was thinking of different ways to explore this text, and traditionally what sometimes is done is to read the text and then go back to the beginning and step more deeply into it. So I thought, I'll just read the sutra, and then we can continue our exploration. And so that you don't necessarily have to look at me reading it, you do have it in front of you, but there we go. Have a nice little, we can have a nice like pastoral images going on as we explore this. What I won't do is At that same retreat, my good friend Tim Morton, who I met at that retreat, we discovered that we both could do a decent Sean Connery voice. And there's something about this sutra that's just really works well for Sean Connery. There's a lot of like, you know, meaty Sean Connery words. So I will not read it as Sean Connery, okay? Because, you know, I don't want the Buddha police to come and like, you know, whatever, give me a demerit or something for sacrilege. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Wisdom. Well, here it's knowledge. It also can be transcendent wisdom. The Sutra of the Heart of Transcendent Knowledge. Thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain, together with a great gathering of the Sanga of monks and a great gathering of the Sanga of Bodhisattvas. At that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. And at the same time, noble Avalokitesvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, saw in this way. He saw the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Then, through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokitesvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita? Addressed in this way, noble Avalokitesvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, said to Venerable Shariputra, O Shariputra, son or daughter of noble family, who wishes to practice the profound Prajnaparamita, should see in this way, seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. Form is emptiness, emptiness also is form. Emptiness is no other than form, form is no other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. The Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics, there is no birth and no cessation, there is no impurity and no purity, there is no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas, no I dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu, no ignorance, no end of ignorance, up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death. No suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since the Bodhisattvas have no attainment, they abide by means of Prajnaparamita. Since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the 3 times, by means of Prajnaparamita, fully awakened to unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. Therefore, the great mantra of Prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The Prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way, Om Gate Gate Paragate, Parasam Gate, Bodhisvaha. The Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound Prajnaparamita. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokitesvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is. O son of noble family, thus it is. One should practice the profound Prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra and noble Avalokitesvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly in the world with its gods, humans, asuras, and Gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. There's a wonderful commentary that we'll touch in with tonight a bit by Carl Brunholzl. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Is it Holzl? So LZL was like, how do I say that? Called the Heart Attack Sutra. And one of the things he talks about is you read this sutra and it feels so audacious and so kind of crazy wisdom, like all of these knows, know this, know that, know anything. what is this about? And there's a way in which this sutra is designed in a very compact way to cut through things. It doesn't have 100,000 lines to get to its point. And what's also the case with this particular sutra is that there's layer upon layer upon layer of meaning. And it's meant to be studied and explored over and over, different layers. So what I'd like is just to, I've kind of gone through and pulled out some different pieces from the sutra so that we can kind of explore it more deeply. But just as a statement, beyond words, beyond thought, beyond description, prajna paramita, unborn, unceasing, the very essence of space, yet it can be experienced as the wisdom of our own awareness. Homage to the mother of the Buddhas, of past, present, and future. Because wisdom is very much connected to mother. And so we start right at the beginning. What I love about the sutra is that in a very short period of time, it not only establishes all of the characters, but tells us where we are and exactly what we're going to talk about. I mean, it really gets to the point. It doesn't do like 3 or 4 episodes to get us there. It's like within a paragraph. And even the first sentence, thus have I heard. So immediately, this gives us a sense that this is, again, an oral tradition, that this is someone listening to this teaching that's about to happen. And as you notice, it doesn't just say, thus have heard, but there is an I in there. And the I is Ananda. Ananda, whose name translates to bliss or joy, was an early student of the Buddha and studied as a monk with him for many years, and at one point became the Buddha's attendant. Partially because it was said that Ananda had this incredible reputation for memory and for being able to recall a teaching without even a hesitation in detail. It is also said that just before Buddha's death, that Ananda made a promise to him that all the teachings he had heard and remembered would start this way. Thus have I heard. A seal of authenticity. So right away, we know that this is a genuine experience that occurred, a genuine teaching that is being offered. That Ananda, and that's Ananda, or a statue of Ananda, that we are listening to his words. And this is actually the first character that's presented to us in the sutra. We never hear from Ananda, but he's present. He's, in a sense, he's the narrator sitting and watching this entire experience unfold. You probably guessed that the Blessed One is Buddha, but I wanted to point it out. The Buddha in these sutras has many different names, the Blessed One, Tathagata, Awakened One. Blessed One literally signifies someone that holds the great self-knowing wisdom. And so in the first 2 sentences, thus have I heard, once the Blessed One was dwelling in Rajagriha at Vulture Peak Mountain. So we have Ananda and we have Buddha there. And we have the location of Vulture Peak Mountain. Rajagriha, which is now Rajgir, is the current name for that particular area in Bihar in India. And Vulture Peak Mountain. It's said that at certain angles, it looks like a vulture with its wings out, kind of resting on the hill. So you can already imagine, think of this place 1,500 years ago, and I mean, probably looked just as cool with all these beautiful mountains surrounding it. And here is Buddha and Ananda and all of this other group that is here. We begin to kind of paint a picture of this story. It's not just simply words, but this is an actual lesson and teaching. We can see ourselves there. We can be in this community there. And so he is at Vulture Peak Mountain. And he is there with a great gathering of the Sanga of monks and a great gathering of the Sanga of Bodhisattvas. And if you're not familiar with the term Sanga, Sanga refers to community, but in this instance, it's not who lives in your neighborhood. This is the community of practitioners who are on the path together. And doesn't necessarily have to be Buddhist practitioners. As the class that we have on Monday night that we teach in mindfulness, we have people from all sorts of traditions that are gathering, because that doesn't matter where we come from. We're all on the same path of wanting to understand something more deeply, to work with our emotional life, and hopefully transform our experiences of suffering. So traditionally, the Sangha is part of the three jewels of the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sanga. These are foundational elements of practice. We rely or take refuge in Buddha as a being who has found their way. We will aspire to that path. We might take a different path to get to the same result, but at least we have some being who has taken that journey. Dharma, and in this case, this is large D Dharma. We'll see later, as you might have heard when we read through the sutra, that the Dharma is used in a couple of different contexts here in the sutra. But here, Dharma refers to teachings, and then Sangha as community. All three work together. We need all three. We need inspiration, but we also need guidance, but we also need camaraderie. This is difficult work, and we need as much support and backup that we can. Now, you may also, well, of course, Sangha of monks, I assume that everyone knows what a monk is. But you may not be familiar with the word Bodhisattva, so I wanted to just call upon that for a second. The word Bodhisattva literally means awakened one. Bodhi, awake, sattva, being. Awakened one or awakened being. And the Bodhisattva embodies the path of the Mahayana. So we'll talk a little bit more about the Mahayana in a second. But the core aspiration or the core vow of the Bodhisattva is someone who is willing to return lifetime after lifetime after lifetime until all suffering is ceased. So all beings, not just human beings, but every being is free of suffering. And so even though a bodhisattva may have attained enlightenment, attained awakening, they still come back again and again and again, because the service of others is what's most important, is what's most vital. My awakening is nothing compared to being of support to others. And so that is the deep commitment that the bodhisattva makes. Now, the bodhisattva is the ideal of the Mahayana, and we'll just briefly talk about this because, of course, there's a lot to talk about in a short period of time. So the Mahayana, Maha, greater, Yana, vehicle, greater vehicle. And in a second, I'll talk about the three turnings of the Buddhist teachings. But the Mahayana is, again, focusing on emptiness and focusing on this work with others. Why it is called greater vehicle is that, as we've just said, I could, as part of Buddhist practice, just work on myself and work on my own awakening, on my own enlightenment. That's also very important. But that the core aspiration in the Mahayana is that we then use that to actually bring compassion and kindness to the world, that we engage others, that no matter how much understanding I could have of my own awakening, usually when we're in relation with other people is when it really gets put to the test, when we really get to see how grounded our practice is. And so the Mahayana is connected to the second turning, the three turnings of the wheel of Dharma. And I'm just going to, again, speak a little bit quickly about this, just so we get a context of what this particular sutra is working with. And so the first turning teachings are the teachings that happened right after the Buddha became enlightened. So these are teachings like the Four Noble Truths and the Eightfold Path. The focus of the first turning teachings is about egolessness. working with our mind, our habits, and our patterns, the way in which we dualistically separate ourselves. We think of ourselves as separate to the world. And from that, we have opinions and feelings and emotions and all of these things, but it actually separates us from experience, not connect us. And so the first turning teachings are very much focused on working with our minds, working with our breath, learning meditation, but also really starting to look at and understand the mechanism of mind and how we continue to conceptualize everything around us as opposed to experience and be with everything around us. The second turning teachings are about emptiness. And not only emptiness, but also this aspect of the Bodhisattva path and working with others. And the third turning of teachings is very much connected to Buddha nature. Each stage, in a sense, each turning establishes one thing in terms of egolessness, and then in the second turning, we have to even abandon that notion of egolessness and understand emptiness. And then the third turning teachings are about Buddha nature, which is, and you're going to have to let go of even emptiness. We're more and more refining these concepts and letting these concepts go. But here, core to the teachings around Buddha nature is that we are inherently Buddha. We are inherently divine. That our true nature is luminosity, sanity, compassion, kindness. That is who we are, not this discursiveness. That is simply a misunderstanding of reality. And so the third turning teachings are working to help us connect to that is true within us, who we truly are. So we're here on Vulture Peak Mountain. We have Ananda. We have this incredible being, Buddha. We also have this incredible Sangha of monks. We have many monks here. We have Bodhisattvas there, out on this incredible vista. And at that time, the Blessed One entered the samadhi that expresses the Dharma called profound illumination. So something happens, a shift happens. And the Buddha enters this incredible state of concentration. Samadhi means concentration, state of concentration. There are many different kinds of samadhis, different focuses that one might be doing. But if you can imagine them sitting on that incredible spot up on Vulture Peak Mountain, and Buddha is in this deep, grounded state, this incredible open state of holding that entire community, residing in the Dharma of profound illumination, one of many things that he could focus and concentrate on. Here it is said that at that moment, the Blessed One he's remaining without conceptual focus. He's absorbed in the true nature of phenomena, the non-existence of real phenomena, profound emptiness. This actually is from the caves of Ajanta in India. If you ever get a chance to go there, this is one of the most amazing places. It's just this little valley, and they basically carved an entire city out of the side of a cliff. There are these incredible cave paintings there. And so here we have Buddha. He's in this incredible state of concentration. He's actually residing in understanding of emptiness, of this vast experience. And at the same time, Avalokitesvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, while practicing the profound Prajnaparamita, sees in this way. He sees the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. So Avalokitesvara is this amazing being that you find throughout many different traditions in Buddhism. But what's kind of amazing about Avalokitesvara is that they is probably a better way to describe Avalokitesvara, because depending on what country you're in, he he, she, they take many different forms, many different names. Kuan Yin, Kanzeon, Kanon, Chenrezig in Tibet. And if you notice that he's the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, so he's not even, like, he's already an awakened being, but he also has a little extra tag of Mahasattva. So a little bit of a guess, what do you think Mahasattva means? Yes, exactly. So he's like awakened being, greater being. He's like ×5 being. But you can see that throughout these different traditions, Avalokitesvara is presented in many, many different ways. In the versions in which Avalokitesvara has 1,000 arms and 1,000 eyes, it is said that at one time, Avalokitesvara would just actually look more like this, a couple arms, a couple legs. And they were so good at quelling suffering that it said that there was actually a moment in which suffering stopped in the entire universe. Avalokitesvara was so good at serving and supporting others' suffering that suffering stopped for a moment. And Avalokitesvara was like, all right, that was good. Okay, we got it done. This is perfect. You know, I set a goal for myself. I got that goal done. We can just kick back. It's all going to be great. And then a moment later, suffering arose again. And it said that Avalokitesvara in that moment was like, what? I mean, come on. Like, I just got all this done and now there's more suffering. And a moment later, Avalokitesvara reflected and was like, that's not the point of all of this in the first place. Suffering is always present, and I have to relate to it. If I think of it as I'm just going to get it done, it's just a goal at the end of a particular project, then I'm missing the whole point. And so it is said that from that point on, Avalokitesvara manifested with 1,000 eyes and 1,000 arms, so that the work that they were doing could go even deeper, that they could help even more people. So this is the next main character that is sitting next to Buddha and having this incredible understanding that to truly practice prajnaparamita, to truly practice the perfection of wisdom, I have to understand that the 5 skandhas are empty of nature. And so profound prajnaparamita. Prajna means wisdom. Precise discernment of all things and events. So wisdom has this ability to look in a most minute detail about the understanding of our mind, our habits, our pattern. And to truly cultivate wisdom, we have to experience and embody these teachings and work with these teachings. It's not an intellectual exercise. If you think about the people in your life who you might say have wisdom, that you might rely on their wisdom, they're usually people who have had a lot of life experience, right? They're seasoned in some way. They've touched into joy and suffering and grief and exaltation. They've practiced these things and they've integrated those things. Those are usually the people who have the most wisdom. And so prajna is very much interested in that. And paramita has a few different definitions. It's perfection. It also is defined as transcendent, but is also translated as gone to the other shore. And there are several paramitas that are part of the Bodhisattva's tool bag. Things like generosity, patience, discipline, exertion, meditation, and wisdom. But it's not just ordinary generosity. It is the perfection of generosity. It is generosity that has reached the other shore of awakening. So this is what Avalokitesvara is contemplating and thinking about. How do I how do I embody and understand this teaching even deeper, this prajna paramita? And so we have the last character. Again, what I love is that basically we're still up in the beginning, and we have this incredible spot, and Buddha is there, and he's in this incredible state of samadhi, and Ananda is there listening and paying attention and recording everything in his incredible mind, and there are these monks, and there's all these bodhisattvas, and Avalokitesvara is having this incredible epiphany, and Shariputra, the last character in our story, who is in most or many sutras, Shariputra is generally the person who asks the question, and sometimes he kind of has to look a little silly sometimes, not so much in this sutra, but there are other sutras where Shariputra kind of asks the kind of silly question or the stupid question, although it's actually what compels an entire teaching to happen. And so I have a lot of sympathy for Shariputra, because I always feel like I'm the one asking the kind of, brain dead question in class. And so there's a sense that Shariputra really is us, is asking, I don't understand this. Can you talk to me more about this? He was born in the ancient Indian kingdom of Magadha around the 5th to 6th century BCE. And plays this very crucial role. But before that happens, there's something else that occurs that's fairly important. Avalokitesvara is realizing the 5 skandhas are empty of nature. And then, as it says in the text, then through the power of the Buddha, Venerable Shariputra said to noble Avalokitesvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son or daughter of noble family train who wishes to practice the profound prajna paramita? So there's this aspect here where it says through the power of the Buddha, and it's not like the Buddha is doing anything particularly special here, but because he is in this incredible state of concentration, that he sees what Avalokitesvara is understanding. And what better opportunity than create a moment in which a teaching can happen? But notice, though, that what doesn't happen is because Shariputra asks this of Avalokitesvara, the next line in the sutra isn't the Buddha going, hey, Avo, can I take this one? I know I just was realizing you've had awakening here, and I'm Buddha, so I'm going to really take it to the next level here. So why don't you go aside and Shariputra, I'll talk to you. No. He's silent because it's so much more powerful for Avalokitesvara in that moment to give this teaching. There's a way in which the practice and the understanding is going to be so much deeper and so much more profound by Buddha staying out of it and allowing the incredible wisdom that's present in the moment to arise. And so Shariputra asks this question of Avalokitesvara. And Avalokitesvara, a son or daughter of noble family who wishes to practice the profound prajna paramita, should see in this way, seeing the 5 skandhas to be empty of nature. And so we begin. One of the things that the Heart Sutra does is it's bringing teachings from the first turning of the wheel of Dharma and teachings from the second turning of the wheel of Dharma and bringing them together. The 5 skandhas is a teaching from the first turning, and emptiness is from the second. And they both are actually working together to deepen our understanding, to deepen our wisdom. And so I thought as a way, because we could also talk for the rest of the night about the 5 skandhas, but I thought maybe as a way to get an understanding of what this is talking about. When I was at Naropa, one of my professors, we were studying the skandhas, and this was maybe like the first quarter, second quarter, and she sort of walked us through a visualization of the way in which the skandhas work. And so we can kind of do this together. We can visualize a little bit. And again, this isn't a complete explanation of the skandhas. Skandha actually translates to heaps or aggregates. And there's a way in which it's a progression of experience. The 5 skandhas: form, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness. And we've heard it said several times in the sutra already. No form, no feeling, no perception, no formation. That's referring to the skandhas. And so, I love that this was on a magazine article about the skandhas, and I just love this cartoon because I like this person's drawing wings on the cage that's over his head. I think that's pretty awesome. And then he's drawing a heart, which I like. So if we can, we'll just visualize this for a second. Have any of you been on a long plane flight? Traveled a long distance? I'm going to assume that maybe you have. If not, visualize that maybe you have. And so for this particular visualization, to understand the mechanism of the skandhas, if we can imagine a time in which we've taken a long journey, one of those journeys that when you get to your destination, you are so tired that you can, like, you feel like you're out of your body, you're so tired. And so we can just imagine, maybe we're on a plane, we're flying to Japan, we're going to go see the Heart Sutra that's written on that leaf in the National Museum. As you just imagine how long of a plane flight that is. I've been on that plane flight, it's long, many, many hours. We finally get to our hotel, the Marriott in Tokyo. I'm going to assume there's a Marriott in Tokyo. I don't know for sure, but roll with me here. And so we finally get to our room. It's late at night. We're exhausted. We're almost delirious. That kind of, again, that we're so tired we can barely stand. We're getting ready to go to bed. We're just settling in. It's going to be one of those sleeps where as soon as you lie on the bed, you're going to completely be unconscious. Does this sound familiar? Yeah? Okay. Just wondering. And so we get into bed, we fall asleep, right? Everything dissolves. We're in a nice, deep, deep sleep. Yeah. That kind of sleep that's like coma sleep. We're out. And then a few hours later, something, we don't know what, maybe it's someone just slamming a door in the hallway, something like that, and we wake up, sit up straight up in bed. The skandha of form, the first skandha. In fact, even before the first skandha of form is that initial moment when we sit up in bed and we're completely open. You know what I'm talking about? Those moments when you walk into a room and you don't know, it's like fresh, open, you have no concept or anything of what's going on. And so if you can imagine, we're in this dark room, the only thing maybe we're seeing is the clock radio. It's completely pitch dark because it's still dark outside. We're exhausted still, but we've woken up, we're sitting up in bed, and the skandha of form, that first step, almost base experience of sitting up in bed, but we have no understanding of even what's going on. And that slowly, as we move into the skandha of perception, as we sit up in bed, we're slowly getting some sense of what is here, where are we? Our eyes start to adjust a little bit, and maybe that alarm clock is filling in the space a little bit more. We're beginning to perceive and see the space that we are in. Maybe there's also a little nightlight in the bathroom that we hadn't really paid attention to. So we kind of know that there's a room over here, and I kind of get a sense. So already, we're not even in that first state of awakening. We're already 2 steps away from it. We're starting to, in a sense, refer to ourselves in a dualistic way to our space. This skandha of form and feeling, and then perception. And here we're, oh, yeah, okay, yeah, I'm sitting up in bed. Yeah, oh, yeah, that's right, I'm sitting in a bed. It's kind of comfortable here. And, oh, yeah, there's a desk. And like more and more, we're filling in little bits and pieces. We now have, at this point, the skandha of perception, we actually know maybe where we are. We know we're in bed. We know there's a clock radio next to us. And we're already that much farther away from that experience. And so that as we reach formation, then not only do we know that we're in the hotel, but we know that we're in the Marriott at Tokyo. And oh yeah, that's right, because I've just flown here for 15 hours on a flight. And, that's really, oh yeah, that's why my neck hurts so much, because, that was crazy. Oh, I kept the light on there. That's right, because maybe we start smelling that pizza that we brought up from the lobby, right? We have a little bit more sense, so we're filling in all those blanks, all those things that just a second ago. And the skandhas work very fast, and they work all the time. We're constantly experiencing and distancing, experiencing and conceptualizing our every moment. And as it keeps deepening, when we get to consciousness, by that point we're, oh yeah, you know what? I gotta tell you, that guy who sat next to me on the airplane, I don't know where that soup was from that he bought, but it was the nastiest smelling soup, and he kept elbowing me. I don't understand why this flight just was like that, and I spent all this money on this flight, and well, I got to figure out tomorrow. And so now we're not even in the moment anymore. We're now in a full storyline, not just storyline of maybe what's the future, because maybe we're sitting in bed now that we're awake. Oh, you know what? I got to remember I got to do this tomorrow, and this has to happen. And I hope I can remember what time it is that I have to go to the thing. Right? So we're not even present here. We're either forward or we're thinking about what just happened hours ago. And so that's this aspect of the skandhas. I love this image. There's a way in which, by that point, by the time the fifth skandha is sort of moving, there's so much going on. We have no stillness. We've lost complete connection to that present moment. It's a distant memory. I also like this too, because it's made out of Post-its. I kind of like the fact that our thoughts sometimes, it's like, write it down, crumple it up, throw it away, write it down. We don't even hold on to them. There's a way in which they're just sort of cycling behind us in this trail of past thoughts. And that is why what this sutra is starting to explore is that when we can embody and bring in meditative practice, when we can start, in a sense, creating a space around that sequence of skandhas that happen, we don't necessarily get to consciousness so quickly. But we can, in those moments when we woke up in that, imagine just waking up and being in that open state, that moment when we first wake up, startled by the door, and we just reside in that open space, instead of slowly boxing and closing up our experience. And so in this particular aspect of teaching, we're being encouraged to evaluate our emotions. How do they affect us? How well do we understand them, their roots, their qualities, their textures? Core to the first turning teachings is very much, if an emotion arises, can you describe that emotion? How do you feel when you're angry? What's the texture of that feeling? Is it in many of the teachings of the Abhidharma, there are categories, many categories of just something like anger. So many variances, so many ways that we can evaluate and look. And this is also why some of the longer Prajnaparamita sutras are so long, because they go into every possible nuance and detail about our minds and how we work and our habits and our feelings and emotions and all the different textures and colors. The more we understand, the more we examine, the more we kind of reach in farther and farther, then the more we can be aware of our own selves in space. We can see when something stirs in us, when someone does something that reverberates in us and we get angry or we get jealous or we get passionate. All of those things we can understand in a better way so that we're not being kind of thrown one way and thrown another way like a rag doll in a dog's mouth, but that we can truly be present. So form is emptiness. Emptiness also is form. Form is no other than emptiness. Emptiness is no other than form. And so right away, Avalokitesvara has said this one pretty profound statement of, oh, for Prajnaparamita, you need to understand the five skandhas are empty of nature. And then his next line is literally, oh, and form is emptiness and emptiness is form. Like he's then going into even a more profound statement. And so we'll explore this a little bit as well, this aspect of emptiness and what is actually being said here. Before we do, that particular phrase, form is emptiness, emptiness is form, is something that's very much reflected in the teachings and writings of Nagarjuna. Nagarjuna is considered the main person to have brought a lot of the Prajnaparamita sutras out into the world and to write extensively about this second turning of teachings in terms of emptiness. He was considered a very renowned scholar, and one of the main things that he created was the Madhyamaka school of thought. This is also Nagarjuna, a different version of Nagarjuna. And the Madhyamaka was a school of thought that would use phrases like form is emptiness, emptiness is form, to have a dialogue and a conversation with someone. And Madhyamakans were very much embodying what they called the middle way, teaching freedom from extremes. And so if someone came up to them and said, I believe everything is eternal and nothing ever changes, everything just stagnant, everything doesn't change, it's all eternal, and that's what I think. And be like, oh, okay, so everything is eternal? But doesn't everything change all the time? What about this tree is constantly changing? So right there, I'm not sure I completely agree with you. And so they would have these very kind of vibrant dialogues and debates with people at the time who are holding these different views and different traditions. And so for a moment to explore emptiness, we're going to draw actually from a teaching from Thich Nhat Hanh, who's a Vietnamese Buddhist, very wonderful, wonderful teacher who died a number of years ago. And he explores this in his book, his commentary about the Heart Sutra. He uses this as an example, as a way for us to understand what does it mean, what does emptiness mean? Because we could think of emptiness when we hear it, it sounds like it means void. Like it's, oh, I don't know if emptiness seems kind of scary, but in fact, it's far from it. And so one of the images that he uses is that if we can think of a sheet of paper, right? And if we're holding this sheet of paper, now normally our experience is that there's myself and this sheet of paper that I'm holding. They're somehow separate, right? I am myself and there's this that I'm holding, but they're not the same. But if we think and contemplate about this sheet of paper, well, we can certainly say, and I don't know if you can see that over there, but right, we know that that sheet of paper is coming from the forest. So we know automatically that this sheet of paper didn't just sort of appear out of nowhere, but it came from something. It came from a tree, right? But that tree, in order for that tree to grow, well, then the clouds must also be in the sheet of paper, right? Because the clouds, well, they bring rain, and rain actually helps that sapling grow from earth, because this piece of paper not only needs the clouds and the rain and the soil, it needs all of those things in order to exist. This piece of paper, after all, isn't existent in and of itself. It needs these things as we need these things. One could say that we are also in this particular piece of paper. But we also know that sunshine is needed. This piece of paper wouldn't be able to exist without sunshine and rain. It's dependent on those things. We also know that at some point a logger has to come and cut down that tree so that tree can be made into a piece of paper. You don't just walk up to a tree and pull a sheet of paper out. Well, I mean, I guess you could if you're a magician, maybe. Right? So that logger has to be part of this sheet of paper. And then that tree has to be cut down and has to be made into a smaller pulp, and needs to be ground up. It needs to be in a smaller, more workable form. We don't just You can't just have a big slab of wood as part of your sheet of paper. So it needs to be processed and turned into pulp. There has to be chemicals. And if we think about that, all the chemicals that have to go in, well, even this bottle of chemical, well, that's many other things that have to be pulled and drawn in to create that bottle of chemical. Even the bottle itself is from other things that are coming together. And so this piece of paper suddenly starts deepening. It starts having more and more layers contained within it. And all of the machines that have to happen to process and make that paper flat and make it able to be cut. And there has to be someone who works many people who work in that particular factory to make sure the paper is cut the right size and packaged. And what about those people? Well, if we think about it, those people also need sunlight and water, and they need earth as well. They need a place to live on. In fact, in order to survive, they need food, which is grown on the earth, and needs water and clouds. And so the more and more deeply we begin to contemplate this piece of paper, we realize that not only that, but that person who works in the factory, well, they also, not only did they need food in order to survive and be here to work in this factory, but they also had parents, right? They needed to be nourished. And so even not only their parents, but their grandparents are in this paper. The great-grandparents, lineages are here. And even the people who have to then bring whoever drives that truck and who made that truck, to take that paper wherever it needs to go. I immediately thought about fractal, this way in which, as you watch a fractal, it keeps deepening. The connections never end. You're always going farther and farther and farther. And so this is partly what is being explored here. That something like myself or this piece of paper, it is not independent. It is empty, actually, of an independent self. And in fact, it's completely full of a dependent self. It is interconnected. Just like if you took one thing out of this forest environment, it would, maybe some of it would hold up, but probably if you took one or two things, if you took water, or if you took the sun, or if you took just 2 or 3 things away from this, it would completely collapse. And so we begin to understand that everything is connected. We are part of everything, and everything is a part of us. Yes, we have form. There's myself and all of you and these chairs and everything here. There is a separation, and yet there is not a separation. Everything we achieve is dependent on something else. As Thich Nhat Hanh says, that I might look into a piece of paper and see you, because you are in there somewhere. If we look far enough, if we go deep enough, and so then you could look at that paper and see me. Oops, sorry. We see each other. The paper is empty of independent self, but it is full of everything. As Thich Nhat Hanh says, if a wave only sees its form with its beginning and end, it will be afraid of birth and death. But if the wave sees that it is water and identifies itself with the water, then it will be emancipated from birth and death. Each wave is born and is going to die, but the water is free from birth and death. And I can just say from working with a lot of people in hospice over the years, that when someone understands that, when they understand that this threshold that they are about to cross into their death is actually a transformation into something else. There isn't anything really dying except maybe the concept of myself and the concept of my life and what I did or what I achieved or didn't achieve. But there's always a point, if a person can get there, where they release all of that and they see, oh, there's so much more possibility here. This last breath I'm going to take is only an opportunity for something else. So form is emptiness and emptiness is form is like saying wave is water and water is wave. And form is none other than emptiness and emptiness is no other than form. They are just interchanged. And the same is true for feelings, perceptions, formations, consciousness, because they all contain each other. Because one exists, all of them exist. So one of the things that I really think about in terms of this is there's a way in which in our daily life, we have experiences, we have something happen, and we take that experience and we put it in a box. We seal that box up and we write a label on it of what that experience is, and we hold on to that box. And we have more boxes and more boxes every day as we experience new things. Oh, that's spinach. I'm going to write that down. That's what spinach is like. And how often when we have something happens in our lives, maybe someone brings us a plate of spinach and we go, I don't touch spinach. Because you see, I wrote on that box over there that says spinach that it sucks. It's the worst. I hate spinach. So we're not even engaging this moment here. We're referring to a box that we put over here that says, this isn't any good. And one of the things that the sutra is really craving for us to do is to break that down, to start not just putting a box aside and not even opening it for the rest of your life, or maybe peering at it. You don't even know why you believe that. How many times have we've reacted to something or we have an opinion about something and someone says, hey, why do you think that way? And you're like, I don't know, because we always were this way, like this sort of vague response. It's like, oh, well, that might be something to be interested in, to explore, to dig into a little bit. And so, as Nagarjuna says, thanks to emptiness, everything is possible. Emptiness is an optimistic concept. If I'm not empty, I cannot be here. And if you are not empty, you cannot be here. Because you are there and I can be here because of that interconnectedness. This is the true meaning of emptiness. Form does not have to have a separate existence. And one of the things that Thich Nhat Hanh talks about is that, if we think about our bodies, we have lungs and heart and kidneys and stomach and blood, and none of these things can exist independently of each other. They all work in consort. Your lungs and your blood are two things, but neither of them can exist separately. The lungs take in air and enrich the blood, and in turn the blood nourishes the lungs. And without either one, they fall apart. And having, again, sat with a lot of people who are dying, there's often a time when a particular organ stops working, some aspect of that person's body stops functioning, and you can see how it creates kind of imbalance. So the kidneys stop, something else in the system is trying to work 5 times as hard to kind of make up for that balance. But everything works with each other. And so they can't each have a separate self and a separate beingness. They're this integration. So all dharmas are emptiness, as Avalokitesvara says. In the same way, feeling, perception, formation, and consciousness are emptiness. The Shariputra, all dharmas are emptiness. There are no characteristics. There's no birth and no cessation, no purity or impurity. There's no decrease and no increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness, there is no form, no feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness. No eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no touch, no dharmas. And here, this is referring to sort of lowercase d, dharma, in the sense that all of us are dharma. I have a dharma, this chair has a dharma, the video recorder, everything has a dharma. It's its essence, if you will, its thusness. And so even those things, everything is empty. We do not do this alone. When we start thinking about this sense that every aspect in our life is empty, that, and if you ever, one of the things that Thich Nhat Hanh talks about is, if you say, oh, I'm a successful business person, or I've done this, or I've done that, and you could simply ask, oh, well, that's wonderful. You did that all by yourself? Well, yes, I get up every morning and I do this and I do that. And oh, well, but you realize that the entire phenomenal world helps you. I mean, that meal that you just had, and did you grow that meal that you just ate? No, right? It came from all sorts of different places and people who helped grow that food and cook that food and prepare that food. Yes, I'm eating that, and maybe I cooked it, and maybe I did grow it, but chances are. And so this is the kind of thing that this sutra is beginning to really ask of us. Are we willing to kind of maybe get off of our ego horse for a second and realize how much we rely and need the rest of the phenomenal world? And so one other piece that it talks about here, the form of feeling, no perception, no formation, no consciousness. And it goes and speaks to no I dhatu up to no mind dhatu, no dhatu of dharmas, no mind consciousness dhatu. And so just briefly, dhatu is something that is part of, again, the first turning of teachings. And it is a way in which for us to understand the skandhas. That separation that happens, when we thought about that earlier, that separation happens because our senses, our eyes, our ears, our nose, right? We see things, oh, I'm in this space. Oh, I feel the bed sheet. Oh yeah, that's right, I'm in the hotel, right? All of those ways in which those senses actually, because of how we conceptualize things, separates us. And so the dhatus are, there's kind of three elements here. The first being the sense organ. So very traditionally in Buddhism, when I'm experiencing something visually, it isn't just one experience. It's actually my eyeball, the object, the sense object I'm experiencing, and then the consciousness, whatever it is in my brain that is taking that information and creating a concept, an idea of what I'm seeing. So if I see something and it's really pretty, I might, right? There's that aspect that is happening and very quick, very, very quick, where our eyeball is receiving, it's being translated, it's being then potentially, as we've been talking about, that instead of seeing it cleanly, we see it with our conception. We see that thing as what we think it is. So this is where, again, we're including and introducing meditation into this process so that we can see that, am I really seeing this? So, for example, my brother today, and I have a difficult relationship with one of my brothers, but it's okay. And he called today. And so there's sometimes like a moment when I see his name on my caller ID where there's like, right, that I'm not even relating to that moment cleanly. I'm relating to it with an opinion, right, that is not really based in this moment. It's based in the past. And I'm glad that I took his call because we actually had a wonderful conversation, because it was like, well, why not talk with him? I haven't talked to him in a while. I'd like to hear what's going on with him, right? This is the way in which we bend that experience just a little bit and don't engage, or we have an opinion, or we spin it a little ways. Why do that? Why not approach and experience every moment fully and openly? And that's what we're talking about here. And so as it says, no end of ignorance up to no old age and death, no end of old age and death. No suffering, no origin of suffering, no cessation of suffering, no path, no wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. It continues because it does not end. When is the moment of birth? When is the moment of death? We said it conceptually, but people are born and are part of and are living much earlier than when they actually are born. In parts of Asia, when you're born, you're actually a year old on your birth certificate. Thich Nhat Hanh talks about that actually when your birthday should actually be called your continuation day. You've already been in existence for quite some time. And the same is true of death. To die means that you become nothing, but what does that really mean? I've sat with people who have been dead for days, and there's still an aspect of them there. There's still something there, even though maybe they are not breathing. But what does it actually mean that they've died? In a sense, emptiness is a word pointing out the fact that no matter what we say or think about something, it does not really correctly characterize that's something, because our dualistic mind just kind of gets stuck in one extreme or another. We have to categorize and think about things as opposed to open up. The cloud becomes something else. The paper becomes something else. If I light this paper on fire, does it cease to exist? Is it dead? It just transforms into other aspects of itself, into flame, into smoke, into ash. So since there is no obscuration of mind, there is no fear. They transcend falsity and attain complete nirvana. All the Buddhas of the 3 times, by means of prajnaparamita, fully awaken to the unsurpassable, true, complete enlightenment. That those who are willing to explore this in a deep way actually can experience this greater, deeper experience of awakening, because they're truly understanding the wisdom of truth. And so this final part, therefore the great mantra of prajnaparamita, the mantra of great insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra that calms all suffering, should be known as truth, since there is no deception. The prajnaparamita mantra is said in this way. And so mantra is generally something in Buddhist practice that is intoned, that is spoken. It's also in other traditions that use mantra. A lot of spiritual traditions use some aspect of mantra, of seed syllables, of words that have an energy, a quality to them that is almost ineffable. And so here we're exploring this very specific mantra that has so many layers. This wisdom is called mantra because it is self-abiding. It does not depend on anything else. It is considered the mantra of great insight because it knows itself by itself. It is unsurpassed mantra because it's something that can't be recited to others. It's something that we intone. It's for us to understand. Sorry. It is unequal because the essence of all characteristics and its qualities, it is equal to the nature of the inseparable essence. It's the mantra that calms all suffering. Because when the heart essence is realized, it will completely pacify all suffering, resulting from mistaken conceptions. And since this mantra, its meaning abides beyond reference, it is undeceiving and should accordingly be known as truth. So that's kind of what I mean about the layers of this sutra, is that even the descriptions of the mantra all mean something and have their own teaching. And so, gate gate, paragate, parasungate, bodhisvaha. So, gate gate. Om is a seed syllable that is often an invocation in a mantra. And it has many different meanings depending on the mantra that it is in. Gate gate literally translates as gone, gone. And realizing the wisdom that does not abide anywhere else, one has gone, gate, to the other shore. So when this is gone, gone, that is, I've reached that other location, that other place of awakening. The first gate is my own awakening. The second gate is that I've traversed, as a bodhisattva, I've traversed this path and I am arrived at the other shore to benefit others. Paragate, gone beyond. So gone, gone, gone beyond. Means that one has reached the highest possible goal for one's benefit as well as to the work with others. So not only have I arrived at the other shore, but I've gone even farther. Because ultimately, then I go utterly beyond. Parasamgate means the highest and most exalted benefit of others. And so this mantra is basically saying, not only have I gone and arrived at this other place, but I've gone even farther because the work and the purpose of this path is to be of service to others. And so as I attain my own awakening and go even farther, I will attain even a farther distance because it is in the service of others. Gate, gate, paragate, parasamgate, bodhisvaha. Bodhi, the quality of unceasing compassion, appearing as the meaning of the perfection of wisdom to beings. Svaha means that minds are naturally liberated. Sometimes bodhisvaha is just thus it is. So gone, gone, gone beyond, gone utterly beyond, thus it is. But again, even these words have even deeper layers and different meanings. So then the Blessed One, thus Shariputra, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, should train in the profound prajnaparamita. So Avalokitesvara finishes his teaching. And then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and praised noble Avalokitesvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, saying, "Good, good, O son of noble family, good, good, thus it is." So this is the first time we've heard Buddha speak. And he arises out of that state of samadhi and immediately praises Avalokitesvara. "Good, good, O son of noble family, thus it is, O son of noble family, thus it is." One should practice the profound prajnaparamita just as you have taught, and all the Tathagatas will rejoice. So he celebrates him. And the Blessed One had said this, Venerable Shariputra, noble Avalokitesvara, the Bodhisattva Mahasattva, that whole assembly and the world with its gods, asuras, humans, and Gandharvas rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One. This is a common ending for a lot of sutras. There is this aspect of believe and uphold, a celebration. Here is this teaching, this understanding of something that we didn't quite understand before, and so we celebrate. We're joyous at what we have heard. So the map of the sutra shows us the path. True wisdom comes from seeing this connectedness. But part of this is that we have to develop the soft heart of compassion. Just like water softens the sort of hard rock and soothes it and smooths it. So does compassion, and so does really understanding this aspect of emptiness will soothe our own rigidity, the ways in which we're stuck in our boxes. A core aspect, and we won't talk too much about this, but compassion is part of the four immeasurables of loving kindness, compassion, joy, and equanimity. All four of these are key tools for the Bodhisattva. And the more we understand emptiness, the more we understand that interconnectedness, the more we know how to step in and be of service to others. We know how to bring kindness. We know how to have compassion, to suffer with others. We know how to celebrate moments of joy, even if that person is our enemy or someone we don't like. If they have a moment of joy, we celebrate that with them, because why not? Why would we want to separate ourselves? These are the key tools of the Bodhisattva. So seeing this helps us to witness suffering, to be aware of suffering we cause, to soothe passion, aggression, and ignorance. And as one of the commentaries says, we could replace all the words in the sutra that go, no eye, no ear, no nose, We could also say no depression, no fear, no war, no unemployment, no hatred. Can we not dispel all of these? And so this is actually on the other side of your handout. This is a prayer that was written by Shantideva in his work, Way of the Bodhisattva, which is a wonderful text, by the way. And he says a number of these things in the story. He's given a hard time in the monastery that he's staying in because he's going and practicing at night. And so kind of going into these deep practices. And so during the day, he's falling asleep in class. And so all of the people kind of all the other monks are making fun of him, like, oh, Shantideva, you're so lazy. Like, who is this guy? He thinks he's smart, but he's just napping all the time. And so as a joke, they build this very kind of elaborate, tall shrine because he has to give a teaching one day. And they give him this very elevated seat as if to make fun of him. And they're like, watch this. Watch Shantideva. He's never going to get up on that thing. And they turn around and he's already up there. And as he begins to speak and talking about the way of the Bodhisattva and saying this prayer, he actually just goes like a riot, just floats up into the heavens. And they're like, oh, maybe he was paying attention. I guess he was sleeping in class, but he's clearly figured something out. So I hit that a little too early. Yes. May all beings everywhere plagued by suffering of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid, and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain. Until then, may I too remain to dispel the suffering of the world. That is actually part of this that you can just say every day. It's a mantra of itself. As long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain. Until then, may I too remain to dispel the suffering of the world. And so, this map of awakening, we understand and find our serenity, finding our path to openness. We take these first steps. We see how we can break down walls, to let go of things that we hold so tightly, that we're so dear with, that actually has so much more space if we allow it that breathing room. So as a last thought from Thich Nhat Hanh, please continue to look back and you will see that you have always been here. Let us look together and be one with the cloud or with the wave to realize our own nature as water and be free from our fear. If we look deeply, we will transcend birth and death. So, a little bit of an exploration of the Heart Sutra. I know we're a little past time if anyone has a question or anything or a thought, but or not. Yes? Yeah.
Can you talk about karma, karma, meaning karma, and how it relates to this?
Sure. It'll be a slightly Reader's Digest version, unless we want to stay here a while. So karma is a complex teaching, because I think here we've sort of reduced it to a cause and effect kind of thing. So you do something bad, you're going to get punished, or you do something good, that then a money tree is going to grow in your backyard. But the thing is, the teachings around karma are much more complex, and there are ways in which an action can have a reverberation that we might never quite see in this lifetime. We may see it in another lifetime, as you said, sort of family karma. Right? There's a way in which sometimes things that aren't healed or resolved keep moving forward, a way in which that seed of trauma or that seed of grief or that seed of confusion gets planted again and again and nurtured and grows and gets planted again because no one has stopped to pay attention to it, to, in a sense, unearth it. And so often we see that in families where it's just continuing again and again and again because there's no attention to it. And so also too, I think in general, the teachings around karma we're looking at things from lifetimes. So there may even be ways in which, for example, I might be having, say, I wake up and the coffee maker doesn't work and I can't get my car started. I'm just having one of those days where it's like nothing is working. Well, there may be a way in which that is a negative karma from another lifetime or another situation that is resolving itself in this moment. So there's a way, often the karma is a clearing of something that is from a past action, a ripple that is sort of then presenting here. And so this could be a moment when those things happen. It's sort of like, coffee maker again. I hate these pod coffee. It always breaks, whatever. We might go into a whole thing. We also could then in that moment go, oh, I wonder what's resolving in this moment. Is there something, a karmic act from the past that's actually resolving and healing itself? And this is what has to happen. So I could actually thank the coffee maker for breaking because it's helping me clear something and heal something, even if I don't know what it is. And oftentimes we don't, because if we think of it from lifetime upon lifetime upon lifetime, it could be something that I did in a past life that's now resolving and opening up here. And so I might have someone, at work where like it's really difficult or there's conflict, and I can be, okay, is there something that's resolving here from a karmic perspective? Maybe this difficulty is from some other time that I was difficult with someone else. And so now I'm experiencing the other side of it so that I can heal something, I can understand something. That allows for workability. And so it's not just me and other, which very much ties into what the sutra is talking about. Because if we start to see that there's an interconnectedness, there's a play, a ripple that we might not even understand, because how can I conceive of all the things that are present in that interaction? That I can potentially heal something. That person who is maybe causing me stress or causing me suffering, maybe I cause them suffering in some way that I don't understand. And so what I want to do then is try to heal that. I want to step into that more and try to understand what's residing there. Does that make sense? Karma, well, yeah, we could talk a while about karma. Anyone else? Can't see anybody. Any other questions or thoughts?
Carlyle, I have a question. Yeah. So the Bodhisattva path, right, to free the world of suffering, is that a fool's errand? Is it inevitable? Is it like breaking wave? I mean,
wait, you want to do what? So all beings are free of suffering?
Right, and if and when that occurs, and if it is inevitable, what does it just start over with suffering starting again? And then what happens to the bodhisattvas if that is achieved? And thanks for being here, and whatever you can elaborate on, I'd be grateful for.
No, I think part of it does almost seem like errant. Like, why would you ever want to do that? How is that ever going to be achieved? And I think the purpose of it is that we even release that goal, or that oh, we'll get there. The aspect that we mentioned with Avalokitesvara of actually manifesting with even more arms and more eyes to do even more work. It's like, the whole purpose is not when is it going to stop. The purpose is just to continue to keep stepping in over and over again. So the path is, there isn't like I'm getting to a point. There's a goal, I'm going to be awakened, and I'm done. But this is sort of saying, from the Bodhisattva perspective, is that we keep arriving, we keep showing up to the best of our ability, that we keep working on ourselves so that we can step in even more in a deeper way over and over again. We aspire that it all, at some point, all ends, that suffering ceases. But as long as we are thinking that that's a goal or what I'm trying to get to, it's never going to succeed, right? So I have to let that go. I have to let go even the concept of what it means to be a bodhisattva. That it also has to be released so that we can actually do the work and be present. Because at least in my experience, to truly be present with someone who is suffering, you have to be without agenda. You have to be completely able to sit in that space with that person and have empathy and suffer with them. Compassion means to suffer with. So it can't be, I'm a little bit better, or I have my stuff together, and that's why I'm here, because I'm so much more advanced. It's like, no, it should be incredibly humbling to actually have the opportunity to sit with someone and at some possible way be of service, however that is. And so that's, I think, the true path of the Bodhisattva, is ultimately they even let go of whatever that aspiration is and just show up. But it does seem kind of crazy, for sure. Well, I know we're way over time, so thank you all for coming out, and I hope that, at least for those, if this was the sutra was new, that maybe it's a little bit more to chew on, and you have the copies, so you can delve into it a little bit more. And if it's something that's familiar, maybe there's something that's deepened a little, or something you're now more curious about. And I think at the bottom of that handout, there's the reference to the two books. There's two commentaries, one from Thich Nhat Hanh, the other by Karl Brunholzl, who revels in this sort of aspect of, well, he calls it the Heart Attack Sutra, because there are stories of people hearing it for the first time and having a heart attack, because it's so direct to like opening their minds that they have a heart attack and fall over. Hopefully no one had a heart attack, I hope. We don't want that. But thank you so much for coming out.